thinking largely paralleled my own over the past year and a half or 2 years. And I got so much, you're better at dealing with this, I think. I got so much shit for it that, I mean, that's A, that's why I'm in Georgia. And B, I mean, every single day, more people hate me. And more people like me, but more people hate me. And you always focus on, or I always focus on the people who hate me. So...
Well, I was going to say, that's why I deal better with it, is because I don't have those toxic shitheads in my life like you do, and I don't pay attention to them when I do, or I just get them out.
I think you did the hard work of not paying attention to the toxic shitheads.
I got them out of my life. That took a long time, but I had to do my own work to get them out, and then it was easy from there.
So how else are things going? You're not at Scribe Media now full time. You're writing. You're enjoying life. Like what? Like I'm always curious. Like, and we'll get to the doomer optimism stuff in a second, or I mean, maybe this won't even be for the podcast. But I'm always curious with you because you are a super ambitious person. You're a great writer. You've done great things. And then how do you pull yourself back from ambition to say, you know what? For a while, I'm going to focus on family and friends and whatever.
It's funny. I'm going to answer your question. Let me come to it circularly a little bit. So psychedelic medicine has gone through a lot of the VC community. And of course, a lot of them are doing it wrong, et cetera. But this one girl who's like, I don't really even know who she is. I don't even know her name. I can't remember it on Twitter. But she's very pretty. So a lot of people pay attention to her. And I'm not even trying to troll her. It's just there's almost no women in that community, and none of them, very few are attractive. And so you know just how the world works. And so she wrote this long set of posts shitting on all these VCs she knew who had done psychedelic medicine. And her point was the negative thing she pointed to, it's just so amazing, was that it killed their ambition, right? And a bunch of people were like, no, it didn't kill their ambition. It woke them up and showed them how fucked up the whole system that they were in and the game they were playing was, right? And so, like, to answer your question, the way I've dealt with ambition is that I have realized especially over the last 3 years, I thought I understood this 3 years ago, but about 3 years ago is when I really went deep into, started therapy years ago, but psychedelic medicine added to my therapeutic practice about 3 years ago, and it really got intense. And that's when I realized, oh, wow, almost everything I'm doing and everything I think about that I want, and all my frames are totally, they're not mine. Fucked up or not, they're not even mine. And so the way I've dealt with ambition...
Define frame. Like, give me an example of a frame.
Okay. That I need to be rich, or that I need to make money, or that I need to be successful, or what successful is, right? These are all... another name for a frame is an assumption, right? Or a starting point, or a dogma, or a philosophy.
Or I'll give you an example from your life. I remember when we met, you had just come off the filming of... I hope they still serve beer in hell. And you were really into the Hollywood thing of like, I hope this movie is a success. And you were really disappointed when that movie didn't
I was
turn
beyond
out how
disappointed. It was way more disappointment. Yeah. But yes. But so the point is, the way I've dealt with ambition is to get to the root of it. Why am I so concerned with my success, and how am I defining success? And once I mean, dude, just answering those two questions, we could talk about for hours, days. But to sum it all, distill it down as much as possible, I realized that almost everything I considered, every assumption I had about success was not mine. It was an assumption that I had learned or taken on from the culture. And when I actually unpacked it, I realized almost none of it I actually cared about or agreed with. When I really thought about it. And so then when I stripped everything away, what I was left with of the things that I actually cared about, I only really care about the things, being with the people I love, doing things that matter to them, and building a world that I want to live in. And I mean, when I say a world, I don't mean like Africa. I don't even mean like New York City. I mean like building the immediate community that I live in. And nothing else matters to me. Now, if other stuff happens, cool, great. Like, I'll take it. Like, I'm not against more conventional definitions of success or whatever. But once I really dove into all of my stuff, I realized that's the only thing that mattered to me. And everything else was bullshit.
Let me ask you this, because I agree with a large amount of that, and yet I'm still driven forward by, we're hierarchical beings. So in a hierarchy,
you can transcend that.
Can you? Because look, it's 10 million years of chimpanzees having hierarchies from alpha to omega.
You're right.
And part of those metrics are either, success, i.e., followers or likes or whatever, or money, like some way in which we measure the hierarchy. And another thing about money, not wealth, but money, is that's how you build kind of the world that you want to live in to some extent. Not always, but to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, both of those are there's deep assumptions in both of those things you just said that I don't agree with, and that I don't think are true. They're stories. They're true for you because they're stories you're telling yourself. They're not true in any objective sense. So yeah, primates are clearly hierarchical beings. Our biology, it's baked in. There's no doubt about that. But the cool hack around that, or the cool frame that I learned, was that I get to decide what my hierarchy is.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that.
Okay, but agreeing with it and actually putting it to play in your life are different things, right? Like most people don't even understand hierarchy, whatever. But even if they do, they accept hierarchies that they're either born into or that they're told are important. I have rejected all of those things. Finally. Like, it's funny you brought up Hollywood because that's a hierarchy, and I was totally bought in at that point. Even when I was in it, I thought I wasn't, but I was, of course. And now it's like, no, I don't care.
And I think what's made a lot of successful people different is that they're still in a hierarchy, but they choose their own hierarchy. So like, instead of most people, for instance, want to be in the wealth hierarchy, but there's other like, I rejected the wealth hierarchy for a while. I went into stand-up comedy, or anybody who goes into the writing hierarchy is rejecting the wealth hierarchy, the traditional success hierarchy. So I think we've got into untraditional hierarchies, but I can't say I've broken out of them.
Dude, you don't even see it. You keep saying, you can pick your hierarchy, but then you keep talking about other people's hierarchies.
Okay.
Comedy has an established hierarchy that you don't have to fucking buy into. Writing I'm the definition of some. Writing absolutely has a standardly accepted hierarchy. I never bought into any of it. I broke it. I beat all of those motherfuckers. Never once bought into it. Never. Same with publishing, right? Never once bought into it, right? Instead, I built my own. Right? That is the thing with hierarchy, is that defining your own is the first step to transcending it. Then really, you can actually transcend it. Truly, you can.
I always felt the way I would always put it, and maybe this is, not the way I should have been thinking about it, but I would always be interested in diversifying hierarchies. So I had more than one. So if one is not working out, I have others that I'm diversifying into. But you're right. Maybe they're all standard though.
That's a great strategy if you're just trying to make yourself super miserable.
Maybe really that's what's happened.
No, and I'm not shitting.
By the way, I've never seen you laugh so much either. So clearly something good's happening.
Well, no, I'm not trying to shit on you, man. It's just okay, I'm going to be in a bunch of different hierarchies is a really good way to have to monitor what a bunch of different people think of you. And they fit into their categories of what matter. It's like, oh God, I can't imagine a worse way to make myself miserable, or a more effective way than I need to measure myself by 10 different scales instead of one, right? No, the step beyond that, if you ever choose to take it, James, is to decide you are going to create your own hierarchy. And then the step beyond that is to let go of all hierarchies.
So let me ask you a question. How do you choose? And look, I defined the word choose yourself, or I coined it for my book, at least, which you helped with. How do you really start from scratch choosing your own hierarchy?
Man, that
And what hierarchy are you in?
it's a great question. The hierarchy I'm in, how well am I living up to the best version of myself possible? That's how I measure myself. Like literally today, I took my kids to town. We ran some errands, did some fun stuff. And at every moment, I'm not asking myself, am I a good parent? Because now how you define good is depending on what hierarchy you're in. I'm asking myself, am I honoring the commitments I've made to my children? And am I being the best version of myself possible? That's the only hierarchy I measure myself on. The voluntary commitments I have entered into and my belief about myself.
So when's there been a time when you felt you slipped on your own hierarchy? Because I feel the best way to define a positive is to look at a negative.
Every day, dude. I mean, I'd love to sit here and tell you that I'm a perfect parent. Wouldn't that be awesome? I'd love to be that. I'm not, right? So like this morning, my son, my youngest, Deacon, he did something and I got upset and I yelled at him and I snapped at him and then he got upset and all. I made a commitment to my kids not to snap and yell at them, right? I screw up all the time, man. It's like, it's a difficult thing for me sometimes. Like, cause they're real good at pushing buttons, man. My kids are experts at finding my buttons and just hitting them repeatedly, dude. They're so good at it.
I mean, that's the only thing kids get good at the first 5 years of their life. Like that's the only thing everybody, I always view that every human being is a scientist. Well, for kids, for babies up to 5 years old, you're their only laboratory.
They're masters at it. Mine are amazing. And so, but the way I get upset in the moment and then I'm like, okay, hold on. Like I'm being upset. And then obviously in our family, we have a saying, everyone makes mistakes. All you have to do is say you're sorry and clean it up, right? So apologize, try, make it right. And then I realize, hey, listen, the fact that I'm getting angry at them, what's the saying? Triggers are teachers? Okay, I'm getting angry at them means that there is work here right now for me to do, right? And now the other side of it is, I actually was half proud of myself because there were like 4 or 5 things that happened that normally would have set me off that I was able to take a step back from and not get upset. And then it was like the 6th thing that my bishop or deacon did. I was like, all right, that's it.
Yeah, they're not going to rest until they hit that button. But let me ask you this too, because
I don't think he's doing it on purpose. It's not him. It's not. That's what a very codependent or very toxic dynamic. He's 2.5, man. He's totally focused on himself. Like I'm not even a separate being to him. I exist only for to serve him in his own mind, right? So that's why I'm never upset at him. Like he's fussing because he has a need he needs to meet, and he's learned this is the way he's going to get it, and so now I've got to deal with that. You know.
So Tucker, here's another question related to it is, when's the last time you did something you didn't really want to do, but you felt like somehow obligated to do it? Because this is related to the ambition thing as well.
I mean, are we counting like I had to pay property tax?
No, not stuff like that, which is like, but like, for instance, going to a conference that you didn't really feel like speaking at, or not that example, but
it's been a long time.
All right, good. Yeah, I would say for me as well. But then I always sit back and wonder, well, maybe I should have. I do the should have thing. Like instead of doing a past year and a half of studying chess, for instance, maybe I should have started new businesses or blah blah blah.
So one of the, this actually might be really helpful for you. One of the things I've done, especially over the last year, is really focused on places in my life where I have shame-based thinking or shame-based words. Should have is a great one. Should have according to who? Oh, no, but seriously, you've said should have. I wish I like in 15 minutes we've been on, I bet you've said it at least 5 times. I should have.
Should have according to me. Like, and I do agree that it's a bad word.
No, it's not a bad word. It depends how you're using it, right? Shame-based.
I'm using it poorly.
Well, see, but like, and that's now you're judging yourself, right? So like,
I am,
self-judgment and shame-based language are amazing indicators of underlying issues to deal with if you're willing to actually look at it, right? Like my mother-in-law is like this. She's a wonderful, incredible woman in so many ways. But man, she is so fucking hard on herself, and she uses so much shame-based language, and usually about herself. It used to be about others, and she's done so much psychedelic work and therapy, and she doesn't really do it to others that much anymore. It's just all on herself now, and you can see the way she talks about herself. And you're very similar. Like I can't ever think of times you've ever shamed anyone or judged anyone else. Like very rare. That was very, very rare coming. You do it to yourself, though, dude. I mean, you heap that shit on yourself. It's crazy.
Well, I remember how we first contacted each other. It was like over a decade ago. I was having a quote unquote Twitter fight with somebody who was bashing one of my books when she also even admitted she hadn't even read it. She just didn't like the title. And you wrote me out of the blue. We had never spoken before. You wrote me out of the blue and said, "Why are you having a Twitter fight with this useless person and who's not even in the same category?" And, blah, blah, blah. It was a very encouraging letter. And then we got in touch and got to know each other very well. But you've been reminding me of this for a decade.
Well, whenever you decide to actually turn and look at it, man, you may find dealing with this stuff always sucks at first. It's never fun. But the other side, what's through it, is usually, at least in my experience, well worth it. I mean, ask yourself, what would your life be like if you were able to, say, turn down your shame and self-judgment, let's say 30%? What would your life be like?
I think it's not necessarily shame and self-judgment. It's like, I wonder why other people will try to judge. I feel bad when other people are inaccurately judging me or shaming me. And then of course I fall into it with it.
That would not bother you if you didn't have that doubt yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that it's an insecurity of mine since childhood that unless I achieve X, Y, and Z.
Where do you think insecurities come from, my brother?
Yeah, I'm sure they come from stuff that's always
internalized
happened.
Shame.
Yeah. So, Tucker, let this in a roundabout way, this brings us into doomer optimism, which you've written about. I had never heard the term before, actually, until a few weeks ago when I heard it from you. And one thing I will point out is that rather than, I read your article about doomer optimism, and then I saw on Facebook something really weird, which is that someone who reposted your article got shamed himself for reposting your article. And then I know it's a good article. Like, I've written articles where people have then contacted me and told me they were unfriended for reposting my article. So then I know, like, why would someone unfriend somebody else for reposting someone else's article? So I said, and obviously I knew this was interesting because you and I have spoken about these topics, and I very much agree with them. But tell me, first off, you define doomer optimism in the very beginning of your article.
The shit's gonna hit the fan, but if we all do our work, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah. And so what led you to, and then by the way, then you start painting this horrific scenario over the next few years, and then you start the optimistic side, which is also how you personally are dealing with it and preparing yourself, not prepping yourself, but preparing yourself. So what led you up to this?
Look, it's I when people ask me that, I'm always like, have you been paying attention the last 2 years? Because like all kinds of shit happened.
Look, I agree with you. I was doing Instagram lives about these topics in March 2020, but it was because I personally was scared. Like, I didn't like what I was seeing. Not only, of course, the pandemic was scary, as you pointed out in the beginning of your article, but then suddenly how easily people capitulated to policies that might have been incorrect, but they just capitulated without asking.
Rolled over is the term I would use. I mean, dude, like I am watching Australia and cannot believe how quickly and completely a country of supposedly free Westerners rolled the fuck over.
Well, what's going on in Australia?
they have prison camps for non-vaccinated. People are like, no, they're quarantine camps. Motherfucker, you're not allowed to leave. Like, they're prison camps. If you leave, they chase you down and arrest you and bring you back. They are prison camps.
Is that really true? I have not heard about it.
It's all over. Well, it's not all over the mainstream news because, of course, they're not going to talk about that. Dude, I mean, go. The Australian government doesn't even hide it anymore, actually. That's my favorite. There's all kinds of stuff about it. Yeah. No, I mean, as far as I know, and as far as anything I've seen, they're not death camps yet. My guess is, this sounds fucking horrible, and God knows I don't want this to happen. The thing I always say, people, it's so funny, I talk to people about this, like, oh, but no, this and that. And I'm like, okay, so if they turn into death camps, is that when you're going to wake up and realize what's going on? And like, well, I'm like, okay, so death camps are okay for you. Is that it? That's not crossing the line. Like, I always try and figure out with people, what's the line for them? Is it prison camps for people with COVID or unvaccinated are not the line? What if they're death camps? Is that the line?
Well, it's interesting because in 2015, a law was not passed but considered in New York State. You could Google it. It's called A416, and it basically says the governor at his or her discretion could detain someone indefinitely if they view them as a threat to public health.
Well, hold on. Didn't that law just get proposed just recently in New York? Like a couple months ago?
No, that's the interesting thing. It was 2015, but now it's being brought up again. The same law.
Right, exactly. Again, yeah. Right.
And now people are saying, oh, yeah, that might be reasonable. So because of everything that's happened, where, of course, back in 2015, nobody considered it unreasonable. And so it's the trend that is scary to me.
So this seems like such an easy solution to me. Why don't we just have a couple of places where people are all in for any form of tyranny as long as it gives them whatever safety they think they're getting from it? And if that's your orientation, cool. Then California, New York, Illinois, whatever places decide that they're going to be tyrannies for safety or however you want to frame it, cool. Go there. Move there. Go. And everyone else who's like, no, I want freedom. Yeah, maybe there's risk to it. Cool, but I don't care. Then you come to Texas and Florida and the South or whatever, right? Like, we can still be America. We just have different states that are going to have completely different orientations to life, liberty, and happiness. Great. Go put your fucking mask on. And go live in your pod and eat the bugs and do what these sociopaths tell you. As long as you're not fucking trying to tell me what I have to do, I don't actually give a fuck. Like, seriously, I don't care.
I've had this conversation with on the podcast with two very smart, educated people. One was a constitutional expert. The other was someone you and I both know very well. All very smart, nice people. And one guy pointed out that in the Constitution, it does say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I said, well, isn't the forced shutting down of every single business in the country against the fact you can't deprive people of their right to make a living without due process? And he said, no, because in the Constitution, life comes first. And I didn't really have an argument for that.
I can make up a bunch of shit too, right? That, like, it doesn't make it true. That's fucking nonsense. In no way, shape, or form. It's sort of like people who say, my favorite of the misreadings of the Constitution are the people who are like, oh, well, the Second Amendment only applies to organized militias, the military, so people shouldn't have guns. No, motherfucker, that's not only is that not at all the framers' intent, but literally the words don't say that. Literally, they don't. They say, here's the easiest way to understand the Second Amendment. I'm going to paraphrase it. Because a nation needs to have a standing army, and that standing army has guns and is dangerous, individuals not in the army need to have guns as well. That's what it fucking says. That's what it means. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not a ranked triplex. It's not. It's absolutely not. If anything, America and all of its founding principles were antithetical to putting life above freedom. That is the opposite of why America was founded. That is the opposite of the principles that this country stands for. But look, if someone wants to fucking die for climate change or for COVID, I don't fucking care. As long as they don't try and take me with them, I'm good. Go fucking kill yourself. Go live in your fucking pod. Go surrender. I don't care. Just leave me alone.
So like in your article, you give a timeline of how you started to feel that the shit was going to hit the fan. And in March 2020, you mentioned you were initially for the lockdowns. I think we were probably both equally scared of where it could lead. I'm more always worried about slippery slopes because I would look at a furniture store. What? Nobody was ever in a furniture store. Why does it need to close down for COVID? It's not like there's a lot of people crowding. And I use this as an example of a furniture store, but it's not as if like people are crowding wall to wall in the furniture store. Like, get me that chair. So like, I always wondered, why do you include restaurants and furniture stores and, weddings all in the same category, that this could be dangerous when you're just shutting everything down and everyone was shaming everyone else. Like, in the same time, I would ride my bicycle in Central Park and people would shout out, wear a mask. And you can't transmit it outdoors. And B, it's not like I'm spinning on anybody. Like,
there's no one else there.
Right.
No, my favorite are the people still to this day. You still see them sometimes wearing a mask in their car alone driving. Talk about the ultimate sign of submission. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Or here's the thing too. I was just in Las Vegas and you have to wear a mask, but then you go to an action and you have to social distance. There's signs everywhere. But then you see a blackjack table and everyone's drinking, so no one's wearing a mask and they're all sitting right next to each other. So the exact spot where you should be doing it is when you're not doing it, and everybody was just walking around social distancing. And they're all wearing fake masks anyway. Like, everyone's just wearing these, like, masks with holes in them.
Things.
Yeah,
right.
or they're wearing like
panties.
Yeah, exactly, like nothing. So it does start to get crazy. And by the way, everyone's got COVID now anyway. So like everybody I know has Omicron at this point. But so what started to really trigger things for you?
Yeah, I don't know if there was one event, man. Honestly, like I'll admit, like, I was fooled in March, like totally. And then by April, though, it's like there's a playbook for dealing with pandemics. It's existed for a long time, and nothing anyone was doing was by that playbook. Like, lockdowns have never been part of the playbook. That's fucking nonsense. They don't work, as evidenced by the last 2 years. By the way, if you think they fucking work, then bless your heart, because at that point, facts obviously don't matter to you. But lockdowns were never part of it. Masks were never part of it.
Although you can't ever prove a negative. Like, if you say that to someone, they'll say, well, it would have been 10 times as many deaths if we didn't do the lockdowns.
Well, they can say anything. I can say I'm 7 feet tall and black. It doesn't fucking make it true, man. Like, just because someone says something, who gives a shit? Fuck them. Like, I don't care. But dude, there has been a playbook that has been used for 100 years for actual pandemics. Whether it works or not, who knows? But like, there was one that everyone agreed, World Health Organization, whatever. This is and then all of a sudden, literally, not right before, but like during, like, nope, we're not doing this. It didn't, and that immediately started setting off yellow flags. And then the reversal on masks came really quick. And then all kinds of other weird shit happened where I'm like, okay, this doesn't make sense. If this is actually a serious public health emergency, then nothing that is going on makes sense with that. Now, looking back, if what you have is a small group or a small set of groups of powerful people whose goal is to cripple or destroy America, then everything makes sense. Now it's like, okay, look at what's happened in the last 2 years and ask yourself, from what perspective does this make sense? That's really the only one. Now, I'm not talking about a lot of what's happened are just low-level sociopaths in power who don't want to give up their power, right? Which is a whole different thing. Like, I seriously doubt like some New York City commissioner is in any sort of international plot of anything. No, they're just the type of idiot who goes into government because they want power over people. And now they see, oh, pandemic gives me power. I'm never going to let this go. That's a different situation. But like, if you look at like everything that's happened, none of it makes sense from any other perspective, man. It's so funny too, to watch like so many people who I used to think of as pretty reasonable and logical for a year and a half try and grapple with what none of these policies make sense. What about this? What about that? And they refuse to see, oh, wow, maybe my model for why policymakers or why people in charge are making decisions is wrong. Like people like Eric Weinstein or Sam Harris or all these fucking people who like, it's like, wow, man, I thought you people were smart. You're actually fucking stupid. Like you can't see a fucking con right in front of you. It's obvious. Maybe it's just because I understand media. Maybe I've been on that side of media for so long and I've seen behind the curtain for so long. I just know what it looks like. And this is the most I've ever seen of anything that's an actual fucking, just a fraud and a con. I mean, how many examples do you need? How many I mean, like, okay, if you, maybe the whole COVID thing, you can be, all right, I get it. Fine. Like things can happen. You can make arguments, but then George Floyd thing, man, like I said in the piece, man, that video was so gut wrenching, dude. I fucking cried watching. That's horrible. And then riots started everywhere. Right. And the best part, like, you can't beat that cryon from CNN where it's like the black reporter standing in front of the fire saying mostly peaceful protests. And come on, stop it. Like the mainstream media tried to sell you that these riots were peaceful protests. It's like, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes? Right? So, right. Do you want to keep going? Like, how many more lies do you like? There's some that are like borderline, like COVID early, maybe you could say is borderline. You can maybe make a good case. Okay, election. That's why I don't even want to talk about the election because it's so fucked up. And there's so many religious dogmatists on the other side with the election stuff. There's so many people who are like, Donald, like they think Donald Trump is some saint. I'm like, he's a narcissistic fucking asshole. Even if you did like him as a president, he didn't give a fuck about you. And so it's like, eject the things that are borderline. The summer 20 riots, the January 6th insurrection, keep going. There's some that are just unarguable.
Let me ask you this, because obviously, right, like you said, the George Floyd video was horrific. Somebody needed to speak out about many things there. But at the same time, you would have 20,000 people gather for a protest, and they didn't need to wear masks. They didn't need the social distance. And meanwhile, uptown, a restaurant would be shut with outdoor dining would be shut down in the exact same city. Or what got me was in Seattle. I think it was in Seattle where they had the their own zone. There was the chop zone.
Autonomous zone. Chaz. Yeah.
Teenagers. There were 2 teenagers that died in that zone, murdered. Yeah. And the guy who was like quote unquote in charge of that zone, he's like selling T-shirts on the web right now. Like, what? How come there's no charges? There's nothing. Like, he wouldn't let police or hospitals, ambulances come through. Like, I don't understand why there's such obvious hypocrisy and people did not see. And I know this eventually leads to what becomes doom or optimism, but why didn't people call it out then? It frustrated me.
It gets back to what you talked about at the earlier, very early part of this podcast is hierarchy, right? The one of the embedded parts of hierarchy is identity, right? Like if I care about the writer hierarchy, it's because I identify as a writer, right? And so there are so many people in this country, everywhere. It's not just America, it's just everywhere. But like whose identity is tied into, well, I'm this type of person, or I'm that type of person, or I'm in this group. And I mean, one of the only long-standing and replicable results in psychology is that people will ignore facts to preserve their either sense of self or identity, right? And so, yeah, most people, I thought I understood how brainwashed most people were before 2 years ago. I was wrong. I was way wrong, man. I had no idea. There are so many people who I thought, James, if I'd made a list of the smartest, freest thinking people I knew, like let's say the top 50, you would have been on that list. You'd have been somewhere, right? Probably at least the top half, right? So of that list of 50, right now, I'd say maybe 20 are still on the list.
And what would you see? What would you see from the 30 that fell off? What did you notice?
They are so embedded in the standard, whatever you want to call it, the standard institutional narrative that they will literally ignore facts. They will ignore what their eyes see.
Right, but
they will literally ignore what they see and believe a lie.
But they think
so
they
that they
aren't,
can
right?
stay in that group.
Like if you point out basic hypocrisy, they think they will have some rational reason why it's not hypocrisy.
No, they won't. What they'll do, they'll redirect. They'll be like, well, what about, right? And they'll talk about Trump or whatever the fuck, right? They'll redirect. They'll make an argument about something else. They'll come up with some other argument. They'll say, well, but what about this? But you forgot about this, or no. It's really. Dude, I've had a couple of people who I'm close to have these conversations. They're not that hard to break. As long as you get them one-on-one and you don't get angry and you just like approach them with pure curiosity and just keep asking questions, what you end up doing, and I've only done this about 1,000 fucking times, is that you break their minds. Like literally, they can't, because all the facts, or at least the majority of them, are lined up against their identity. And when you just ask enough questions from the right way and they realize they can't reconcile, they either get violent, they get angry, they refuse to talk about it, or you break them. Like, I mean, you can ask Veronica. You know Veronica well. She's seen me do this at dinner to people, where it's like they shut down. They can't keep functioning, and they have to start crying. They leave. They do something like that. And I'm not talking about angry debate. Angry debate never works. If you yell at them or scream or throw facts in front of their face, then it actually makes it easy for them to defend, right? So the opposite way, the way you get people is that you just from a place of curiosity and kindness and softness, just keep asking. But okay, but how does that work? But why this? You can actually do that with anyone, with almost anything, because virtually no one understands why they believe what they believe about hardly anything, right? And so like you can do that. Like it's a very easy technique to use if you just like. There have been times in my life where like I have to be honest. Like I'll be talking to some person, I don't like them, and I'm like, all right, fuck this, I'm gonna break them. And I just decide I'll do that, and I'll go, not even independent of the last 2 years. But like, no, dude, that just start asking them, why do you believe that? So explain that to me. Hold on, but what about this? But what about this? And just keep going. And then generally they run out of shit.
So let's do this, because I've had these conversations many times, and usually my approach is a little different than yours, which is I give up, meaning I'm not going to keep going until they cry or break.
See, I either don't start or I finish them. those are my only two perspectives, man.
I'll only go about 10% of the way, because I'll think to myself, it's not worth it to me to go all the way with this. But let's play devil's advocate. Like I'm going to say, oh, everything was justified with the lockdowns and the vaccines and all this stuff.
Yeah, but you don't believe that. We can't role play it because you don't believe
it. All right. So I'm just curious, because I think the technique of breaking is interesting. It reminds me though of Peter Boghossian. I don't know if you read his book, Having Difficult Conversations, where his thing will be like, okay, I'm 60% there. Get me the other 40%. Like, it sounds interesting what you're saying. Get me the other 40%. Like, what about the fact that 20,000 people were allowed to protest, but you were still shutting down furniture stores uptown? Like, and they say, well, they were only protesting. I don't know what people would say, actually. I have no idea.
Right. See, that's why we can't role play, because you don't believe any of it, because it's bullshit.
Right.
Right?
But why was this happening? Like, why don't people see the hypocrisy? Like, if you point out the hypocrisy, no one will admit that it's hypocritical.
James, Because most people, when faced with truth or group, pick group.
But if you say, is this hypocrisy, yes or no? And they say no, when it's so obvious to anybody that it is.
Dude, that's what I'm trying to explain to you, man, is that the stages of when I break them. First, they'll deny. A lot of times, they'll then recognize and say, I don't care. I still believe it anyway.
Yeah, I see.
Because when faced with truth or group / status, most people pick group and status.
So what they pick also is faith, right? So faith is this ability to assert something that you don't have any proof of.
No, see, hold on. That's a little different. Belief without proof. When most people say faith, they're talking about religion, right? But belief without proof is a different issue. Like the technique I was talking about, curiosity, doesn't actually work well on religious people. Like it doesn't break religious people because most of religion is made. I don't necessarily mean God or spirituality, but organized religion. It's a made up set of beliefs, right? And so but at the core of it, why it works, the mental hack that organized religion figured out thousands of years ago is faith. Right? That you believe without proof. So that's why it always makes me laugh. Like religious people have arguments. I'm like, why even argue? You believe without proof anyway, right? So like that isn't faith a core tenet? And they'll say, yeah. I'm like, well then why are you talking about facts? You don't care about facts. That's actually when they get angry, which is weird. But the approaching with gentle, kind, but tenacious curiosity only works on people who think they're being reasonable and rational and logical. Because that is a part of their defined self, right? And so that's what you're breaking.
Like you and I both know very intelligent people. When presented with something that's clearly hypocrisy, like why weren't these people in the Chaz arrested? Why are you allowing somehow 20,000 person gatherings are COVID free when a furniture store isn't?
Brother, how many times do I have to tell you that when faced with truth or group, most people pick group?
But how could they rationalize it when you just present it to them that way, though?
Dude, I mean, how much mental gymnastics do you have to see in people before you realize that the human mind will justify anything if it lets them believe something that gets them what they want? You come from finance. How many times have you seen people believe absolute nonsensical fantasies to arrive at a conclusion that they want? Only 98% of the time?
Yeah, or if you combine it with media, then it's 99. But the role of an investor is to kind of get through those hypocrisies. Otherwise, you're going to make a bad investment.
Right, exactly. Which is one of the reasons that finance is, in a lot of ways, a different world, right? Now, granted, there's some. It's not black and white there, but like probably why you like chess, because you can argue about chess all day, but what really matters is what happens on the board. Why a lot of people love MMA, because you can talk about fighting all day, the truth finds you on the mats, right?
I think for me, that kind of, because of events like this that happened to me, let's say over the past 2 years, I think that drove me towards something where the truth is just on the board. There's nothing but the truth there. And I don't know, for all I know, maybe that's what drove you to MMA, although...
It is. It's one of the things I love about it, truly, is that there's no bullshit and there's no talk.
There's no BS. And there's very few things. If you think about it, what professions are no BS? There's very few.
Yeah, very few. Very, 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 very.
Like if you take the standard professions, doctor, lawyer, business,
they're made up bullshit. All
yeah, there's all BS. It's all narrative. So and it's been through for millennia. And politician, judge, I don't know what even
veterinarian is pretty tied to reality.
What is
veterinarian?
Oh, veterinarian. All right, yeah. I think that veterinarian is. I was about to say busking for money on the street, like playing a banjo on the street for money. There's no bullshit there. But it's hard for me to find other professions. Sports, maybe, like a basketball player. There's Well, although there's politics of getting on the court, I guess, in professional basketball, and there's a lot of BS in how the brand of basketball teams and
There, I don't think it's there's very. I don't know if there's any where it's pure, like it's like a light switch where it's like binary, right? I think it's degrees. So like you go to, economist is 90+% bullshit. NBA player is 90+% honest, right? Like either you can ball or you can't. And so like, yeah, there's some level of bullshit about accessibility and this and that. I get you. It's not perfect, but most sports without judges, like I don't consider as athletic as gymnasts are, right? There's judges. It's like, although they've actually done a lot to make the scoring more objective, so it's actually a lot better now. It's still, judges are judges, right? And so like sports without judges, things where the feedback mechanisms are non-human, veterinarians, things like that are objective, chess, like those sort of a lumberjack, either you cut the fucking tree down or you don't, right? Like there's those sorts of things. To some extent, finance, although it's, on the continuum, it's in the middle, right?
If you're on the side of finance, yeah, when you only eat what you kill, like you either business either works or it doesn't. Or if you're trying to sell something like, oh, buy these mutual funds, that's 100% bullshit. But if you're like, oh, if I only make money if this investment works out, if it helps people, then I feel there's less bullshit in that. But okay, given all this, does it end or does it get worse?
So I think we're past the point of fixing the system. So, I mean, you understand, like all empires run in cycles, right? This is one of those things where I thought everyone knew this. And then most people are like, what are you talking about? Empires run in cycles. What? Yeah, because I guess the way history is taught is such complete bullshit. But one of the things that like everyone should know, but I guess they don't, is that history runs in cycles. Like, I don't think it's that exact. Like super precise, like 13.82 years or whatever. But empires tend to run in very clear, have very clear sort of stages, right? And America, which is clearly an empire, anyone who says it's not is just a fool. The American empire is in its downfall stage. There's no doubt. Like it's just clear as day. And so I don't think the system is salvageable. I'm not sure when we pass that point, but we're long past it. And so what has to happen now is that it has to collapse. And the problem is that most people don't understand what collapse means, right? Like the British Empire collapsed. It doesn't mean England doesn't exist anymore, right? So collapse doesn't mean you go from this vibrant, amazing thing to nothing. That's nonsense. It means what the height of I don't know when the peak of the American empire is going to be pegged. Maybe it's going to be sometime in the last 20 years, right? So sometime probably past 2000, probably before, let's say 2018, right? Somewhere in there is going to be the peak. And so as we decline, how we decline and what happens in the breakup is going to be, that's the only thing that really we're going to figure out over the next few years.
This is what I'm honestly scared about. But let's define decline for a second, or peak, because still I would say innovation is happening. I mean, it's happening all over the world, and we're seeing great innovation happening. And even, for instance, China, because they don't have the same rules, regulations as we do. But innovation is still happening in the US. We're seeing amazing inventions or developments or whatever. What does decline mean? What does peak mean?
So I mean, as an empire, as a cohesive, organized, functioning single unit, as an empire, America is done, right? That's it. It's over. And the only question now is what comes next? How does the decline go, right? That's it. Those are the only real questions in terms of if you're looking at America, right? See, there's so many ways for empires to fall apart. Like the Sumerians, the Romans, the Greeks, the British, the Mongolians, like we have such a long, I mean, there's so many different Chinese empires. You can look at how they fall, right? You can have serious collapses where like shit's gone, right? Like the Mycenaeans, right? Like that probably happened because of a major natural catastrophe. Okay, like those are really hard to come back from. Who knows? Those are unpredictable, right? I don't really see that as being an issue though, barring that. For America, what we're probably going to see is a slow decline and then a fracturing of the United States. I don't whether that means a full-on national divorce, whether it means breaking up into more of a federated European model, whether it means, who knows what it fucking means, man. But like I was telling you before, what's become very clear at a core minimum is that there are a lot of people in America that I have no desire to share a state or a set of assumptions. We no longer share a set of assumptions. So why would we share a state? I don't need them and I don't want them. And why should we be making group decisions? Like that doesn't make sense. Let the people who want to wear masks alone in their car go live somewhere where that they think that magical thinking produces benefit. Cool, man. I want to live on a ranch with people who want to produce cool stuff and hang out in nature and not be a lunatic about bullshit, right? We don't have to live together.
Right. And we're seeing that people are voting with their feet. Like data came out for 2021 where people are moving. So you see that the states of California, New York, Illinois, hundreds of thousands of people left. And at the other side, you see Texas, Florida,
Tennessee,
Tennessee,
Utah,
South
Idaho.
Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, people have been moving towards. And so people, but at the same time, you see people, and Arizona's on the list too, where people are moving. And you see people saying, on both sides, people are saying, don't bring your politics here. But of course, more people are leaving.
I think that's great. Like if you're one of those fucking lunatics who think that we should defund all the police all at once and that we should have homeless encampments everywhere, all that shit that they were trying to do in Austin, go to LA or New York where they already have that. Like that's great. Go live there. We know what those policies look like. They create a hellscape. Go fucking live in it. Get the fuck out.
So do you see what's happening is maybe this is a peaceful transition to maybe this is the most, maybe this is more.
I hope it is.
Like, what do you see as a worst case scenario and a best case scenario?
Well, I mean, dude, I don't know what world you live in, but I have never seen sociopaths give up power peacefully. I've seen it taken from them, and I've seen not that bad of wars or fights. I have never seen sociopaths give up power peacefully. I would love to know the counterexample. There might be a couple. I just don't know what they are. But so even if there are a couple counterexamples, in the vast majority of cases, sociopaths don't give up power peacefully, right? So I'm not sure how this is going to play out. I wrote about it in the article. My guess, I don't know, dude. There's so many things at play. The problem with predictions is that even for me, like I'm smart as fuck and I get how bad predictions are. And it's like getting that, I'm going to make predictions and I'm going to fall into the same traps, is that they're so linear, right? It's like, oh, okay, this will happen, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this. No, that never accounts for all kinds of other feedback loops and changes.
That's a really great point. Predictions are not one-dimensional. They're three-dimensional because there's always lots of choices after the first event happens.
And reactions happen that you can't predict or even know about, man. Like there's no fucking way you could predict and know.
But I like how in your article you say, you describe how you're preparing for what comes next, and that as opposed to, this is why I distinguish between what you're doing and prepping, is that you're not running into a cave with lots of canned foods. You say, no matter what happens next, you would be doing the same thing. So maybe describe what and I think that's valuable because what you describe is actually a very great lifestyle that I'm sure many would aspire to.
Yes. So all right. It's funny, man. After I wrote that article, I got tons of email feedback, but one email really actually hit me in the gut, man. Is this Indian guy, and he's like, "Hey, man, maybe it's just a language translation thing, but where's the optimism?" And I was like, fuck, he's right. Like,
I was thinking about that as well, but I get it because
well, so hold on. Let me actually explain why I'm optimistic, right? Because I think I did talk about it in the piece, but obliquely, and I bounced off it, and I did not go into it, right? So let me start with last year, 2 years ago, now 2020, when COVID hit. I was one of those people for whom COVID was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, right? Not at first, right? Because for like business crash and all this stuff, business is doing great now. But at the beginning, it was really rough. But then once I got through, March, April, by May and June, definitely, I realized, okay, hold on a minute. I don't just love my family. I like my family. And I like spending all this time with them. This is actually awesome. What the fuck was I doing before? Like, what the hell was I doing? Like, I was doing all these things. It just really gets us back to what we talked about at the beginning. I was doing all these things that I thought I should be doing. And now I don't have to do them. And I don't fucking miss any of them hardly. And I really like what I've replaced them with. And which is spending time with the people I love. And then my wife and I always wanted to live on land. We always wanted to kind of be closer to nature, raise our kid. And we realized, like, what the fuck are we waiting for? Like, what the hell is going on? And so then the two things kind of came together, right? And I realized I don't want to spend my life on a treadmill, on running my ass off to do a bunch of things I don't care about to impress a bunch of people I don't like, buying shit I don't need, just like straight out of Fight Club, right? So I really, like, what do I want? It gets back to exactly what I said. I want to spend time with the people I love, doing things that matter to them and improving the immediate world that I live in. And the only way to do that I know of, is to live on land, to work that land, to husband that land. I mean that in the agricultural sense, and to produce a lot of what it is you use. Now, I'm not like, I want electricity. This isn't like weirdo Amish, like I'm not going to use electricity or air conditioning shit. Like, nothing against the Amish, but I like modern stuff. But at the same time, the vast majority of shit in our life we don't need, and is a distraction to avoid all, to get us on this consumerist corporate bullshit treadmill that doesn't serve us.
Do you think a lot of people did get off that treadmill? Because you notice right now, people aren't going to work. Like, there's 10 million job openings in the US and only 7 million people looking for jobs. I've never seen that kind of disparity.
I think a lot of people woke up, man. I think I did. James, I thought I understood this and I thought I was awake. And actually, my wife and I had all these desires and dreams and hopes in January of 2020, but we weren't doing shit about it. We were stuck on the treadmill and we thought we weren't. I was just as blind. All the people that I'm like talking about now, I was just as blind then. The difference is I didn't even realize how blind I was because I thought I knew. Now, the only thing I've really realized is that how blind I was then. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Here's this thing I love. Why don't I just go do that? Right? And the way that's the thing. Old school prepping is let's endure this disaster and then go back to reality. Doomer optimism is let's change the way we live so that our lives are actually what we want them to be and actually produce more life, are generative.
And is survivable in a worst case scenario. Like if you feel your optimal life is living in a penthouse in New York City, that might not survive a political collapse.
Right. I don't mean anything. I don't mean nothing judgment, no judgment about living in a city and I used to do that. There's things about that are cool. But in a world that is no longer able to be hyper-connected, that is no longer able to be extremely extractive of the environment and of labor, that lifestyle is not sustainable. It's just not. It's not even doable anymore.
So for you, there's land, which kind of implies independence. Like if you're on your land that you own and it's kind of out of the city.
I'm a big fan of sovereignty, man. Individual sovereignty, Human sovereignty means food sovereignty, it means water sovereignty, it means energy sovereignty. The more of those things that you can produce on your own or with your group around you, the easier it is to be free.
And then the other thing you mentioned, which I think is really good, is that it's not just about, again, having the canned food stored up, although you do mention having food stored up, which I think is a great point, no matter what. But you also say take care of yourself physically, which is really important. If hospitals are not around, you need to be in good shape and so on.
I mean, it's more, dude, like our bodies are the one physical thing that we absolutely own is our physical bodies. Like, there's nothing that think about how many people do you see that are incredibly out of shape that take a ton of care of their car? It's like, nothing against your car, man, but what are you doing? What are you doing? Where are your priorities? Like, if I actually say that I love my family, doesn't that mean I want to spend as much time as possible with them, meaning years? Yeah. Am I going to do that? Not treating my body well? No, I'm not. I'm just not. Am I going to enjoy the years I have with them? No. Am I going to be able to have sex with my wife if I'm a disgusting, impotent fatty? No, I won't. So I'm not going to do that. It's pretty simple.
And then you also bring up the power of community, which I think is very important.
Well, community is the thing. Okay, so again, brings us back to the beginning. Primates are hierarchical, but more than hierarchical, primates are social. First, before hierarchy, if there is a deepest embedded sort of nature to primates, it is social. And we are the naked social primates, humans are. And so humans don't even exist without community. Like, I mean, we know what it's like when you raise a human in a closet with no human interaction, unfortunately, because it's happened. And they're not humans. They're hardly even animals. They're non-functional beings. We exist in relation to each other, right? And most of our modern world, and I don't know if this is a conspiracy or not. It doesn't matter how it happened, but we are here in a modern world that if you if you allow the defaults of the modern world to be your life, you are lonely, isolated, sad, sick, unhealthy, and exploited. But the first one is lonely, alone.
I agree with that because look, I feel like I've been on every side of this equation, and loneliness, when you definitely sign up for a hierarchy and you start to fail in that hierarchy, which is inevitable, every hierarchy has its ups and downs. Loneliness is the first. Fear and loneliness are the first two things that happen. Like stark fear for your life, because it's a natural thing. If you're the omega of the tribe, you're going to be left out to die, and loneliness because you don't have your community.
I mean, dude, humans, it's so funny, man. Like, ask people, like, one of the other things, like, what would you love your day to be? And if you really, like, strip away all the bullshit, most people, I know myself, like, here, fuck that. Let me tell you what my ideal day is. It's basically what I do now, except there's a couple things that I'm trying to add on. But I wake up without an alarm clock, next to my wife that I love. Sometimes we have sex in the morning, sometimes not. Kind of depends. She's pregnant now, so more than often not, but whatever. Then our kids wake up, they come down, we drink tea together, we have breakfast. There's no rush to get anywhere, right? They go to school. We get them ready. They go to school. Then she and I generally work from home, right? Ideally, then we have lunch together. And then the thing we don't have yet that we're now adding on, now that we're on land and there's a lot of people around us in our community that we really like and that have moved there, is that maybe not every single night, because that might be a little tedious, but at least 2 or 3 nights a week, people are in our community are coming over and having dinner with us, or we're going to their place and having dinner with them, whether it's just us and one family, whether it's us and 4 or 5 other families. We do a fire, we cook on the fire, or we just, cook normal and then just go. But like, we commune with each other, right? Our kids now play together, right? With people we know. We eat together. We do things with people we like that we want to do with, right? Which a lot of people are like, oh, but you can get that in the city. Yeah, not really. Definitely not outside of cars, and definitely like that's not. You're seeing the same people over and over. The only people I know of that have lives like that as a group in America are religious people, right? And nothing against religion, but like I'm not going to join the Mormon church just to have a community. So I'm going to build my own, right? And not the community of Tucker. Like it's just we're gonna build something, and then other people who like it are gonna be part of it. It's their community too.
What's the role of virtual in this? Because I feel like, look, I have felt always, you and I, for instance, are in the same kind of overall community, but we've never lived by each other. Like what? But I find in the past few months or year, I don't really use the internet that much, other than to do these podcasts. For instance, I don't look at news sites. I don't surf the web or anything. Like, what's the role of virtual community?
It's a good question, man. I'll tell you straight up. It's one of the ways I think the way the American empire is going to fracture will be on several different lines. And I think very few of them are going to be the ones you'd expect. One of the ways, though, that I think America is going to fracture that is predictable is along virtual or real lives. Or I should say physical, because real's a little bit of a loaded word. I think there are a lot of people who are going to double down on metaverse. Like, basically, they're going to go into the matrix. And I mean that more metaphorically than literally, although who fucking knows. I like the internet. I like connectivity, but I only like it as a tool. I like it the way I like my hammer and the way I like my screwdriver. Like, I don't want my hammer all the time with me, hitting everything. Like, I don't hit my kid with a hammer. That would suck. But I use my hammer when I need to nail something. If I use the internet for everything, that's like using a hammer for everything. It's going to suck sometimes. As a tool, I love it. But especially the last 2 years, I have really learned how to use this as a tool and not how to live on it. And I think the vast majority of people who are going to be effective and healthy and productive and happy in the coming decades are people who are moving away from digital spaces being their prime spaces. I'm not shitting. I think there's using digital to connect with a community, and then great, no problem. That's awesome, right? It's not. I don't think this is in the clear divide. But the ones who use digital to augment physical, I think that's fantastic. The ones who see physical as almost like just the meat space for the real world of digital, I think the world's going to be rough for them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I guess, again, a lot of this, I want to bring it back to what we were originally discussing, which was the role of ambition in this. Like, you are one of, if not the best writer out there, one of the best writers out there. And this is clearly where, a skill you've spent decades building up, and as, shown by the reaction to your recent article, that skill is very much there. Where do you see your writing going through this? What are you gonna write about next? Or is there such a thing as a book in the future, or is it posts? Is it, are you going to do fiction? Are you going to do nonfiction?
I would be the big, if I had laid out a clear plan for you for the future for me, then everything I said about ambition would have been total bullshit. Come on, man.
All right. Maybe I was trying to trap you.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, man.
I guess I always ask you questions I ask myself.
Yeah. Okay. So let me tell you, I do have a view of this, but it's definitely not a clear, specific. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. My view is, so I'm not comparing myself to him, please. I'm just learning from him. But I read one of my favorite books I've read in the last couple of years. I'm not necessarily recommending this to most people because it's kind of a weird, thick, long book. But it's called Old Path, White Clouds. It's a...
What the hell? I have not heard of this.
Yeah, it's a novelized version of the Buddha's life by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's like a very famous Vietnamese Buddhist monk. Right. So he, not many people in America know about this book, but he basically took most of the old school Pali Canon and some of the oldest Buddhist writings, and wrote like a novelized version of the Buddha's life. And I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It was an incredible book. It's like, don't read it because it's high literature. Read it because it's a really awesome way to learn about the Buddha. And one of the insights that I took from the book, one of the things that Buddha said was, because the question he got a lot was like, what's the point of life? What's your goal? What are you supposed to be doing? Especially his Buddhist disciples would ask him. And he always said the same basic thing, which is, I'm not trying to quote the Buddha. I'm just paraphrasing the way I took it. Your job here is to do your work and then share your work with others so that it might help them. So that's all I'm going to do, man. That's like the doom or optimism piece. What did I do? I did my work, so I got to a place where in my life where I was happy and on the right path and figuring some things out. And then a lot of people that I told about that were interested, so I wrote the thing up, told them about it. And notice how, James, I didn't tell anyone what to do. I didn't say, go in there. I defy you to find the word should in there. It might be in there. If it is, I need to take it out. But at no point was I like, I hardly use the word you, like you should, you ought to, you need to, you must. I don't think I used any of those terms, at least not in the sense of like telling other people what to do. I basically have cut that from my life, man, because I don't know what other people should do. And I'm not trying to tell other people what to do or how to live. I am just going to do my work, and I'm going to share it with the world. And if it helps others, awesome.
And then one last thing about all of this. And by the way, I just bought the book that you just recommended. It was written in 1987. I had no idea. Like, I've read a lot of books by him. I don't have Thich Nhat Hanh, and a lot of them are from the past decade, 2 decades. I didn't know he was writing back then, so I just bought the book. The other thing is, I would recommend Stephen Batchelor's book on Buddhism, or Confessions of a Buddhist Atheist, because there's probably similar themes.
I have read that. It's good. He's good. He's smart.
Yeah, he's very good. So that's interesting. But okay, a lot of the stuff you say, somebody might be thinking, and I think they're wrong in thinking this way, but they might think, oh, you need money to do these things that Tucker is suggesting. And I don't think that's true, as evidenced by the fact that...
You definitely need money to do what I've done. To buy a fucking ranch in Dripping Springs.
Yes, but I think to live a simpler life, though, you see the fact that so many people have dropped out of the workforce, or the traditional workforce, that there are many paths to get to this point.
Absolutely. You need money. The idea that you need money is an idea of the consumerist corporate culture. They want you to think that because it keeps you on their treadmill. It keeps you in their hierarchy. You just don't. Listen, I'm not going to tell you that money doesn't work really well for a few things, because it does. It has made my transition to this life way easier. Truly, man. If I had to do this with 3 kids and a wife and no money, it's doable, but it would be rough. It'd be hard. It would take a lot more work. So it's been easier, but you can totally do this with very, very, very little money. Let me give you a couple examples, because I know like most people who don't have money tend to have a very defeatist scarcity mindset, and they don't believe it without examples, right? So I'll tell you right now, we are going into a phase right now where if you have real hard vocational skills, you are going to be one of the most valuable people in the world. And I mean, like, are you a plumber? Are you an electrician? Are you a diesel mechanic? Are you a metal fabricator? Are you a carpenter? Can you do HVAC repair? Those sorts of things used to be so-called blue-collar jobs, were very looked down upon. You can walk into almost any, if you have no skills, none of those skills, like you don't even know what a diesel engine is, let's say, you can walk into a diesel repair shop. As long as you are punctual and not completely mentally bereft, they'll pay you to train you in these skills, because everyone is so desperate for anyone who does anything well, that if you just show up and do your best, they'll pay you probably 15 or 20 bucks an hour to get trained, right? And then once you're actually, let's say, a metal fabricator, you're charging whatever you want. You're 50, 100 bucks an hour. If you're a master electrician, you're charging anything you want. Like I'm building all kinds of stuff at my ranch, and we found a contractor, and dude, bless his heart, man. Like, this guy's like a great contractor, and he basically can charge anything he wants. Like anything he wants, because you can't even find good ones. And he's like nice, and he's not gouging us, but charging us double what we would have paid 3 years ago for the same job. And we feel like man, at least he's not screwing us. Like, seriously, I'm not kidding, man. Like, I love the dude. If you can actually do real things with your hands, your future is absolutely golden, right?
And what can you do?
So it's a great question. I actually have decided one of the hard skills, right? Because I've got all kinds of amazing skills. I don't have a lot of hard skills, mechanical, vocational skills. I'm going to develop is carpentry. Like, I've always loved working with wood. And it's a very easy place to start. I'm going to start with carpentry. I actually, don't hold me to this. I'm not promising. I'm definitely going to get good at wood, because I've already built a few things. I built a shelf. I'm doing a cutting board now, like, the basic entry level things. And I can already tell I'll be workable at this. Like, I'll probably, I'm not going to be Bob Vila or some shit, but I'll be good enough. The thing I really want to get into is blacksmithing, because that's always seems super fun to me. But that's hard, man. Dealing with metal, and I don't just mean skill hard. I just mean like man, the level of artistry it takes to be like a good knife smith. You think, oh, how hard can that be? Dude, you have no idea. Those people are as skilled as the greatest winemakers or the greatest artists on earth. Maybe more skilled. It's insane. Yeah, but so I think carpentry and then maybe blacksmithing.
I feel like I don't know what I would do. Maybe plumbing, because I'm so used to dealing with shit all the time.
Well, dude, like, hard skills. I'm not saying everyone, like, you're good at a lot of things, man. I'm just talking about for someone who has no money, right? And they're like, well, how do I even start? Dude, if you are, it'll take you a couple years to be a serviceable electrician. You can literally pick wherever you want to live and pick your salary. And by the way, as people start to build communities and begin to live as communities, which is going to have, it is a major trend. I haven't even brought up one of the major projects that I have, because I don't even want to open that Pandora's box. But long story short, and don't you dare try and get me to expand on this, James, because I won't, is that me and some people are getting together and we're building a town, like an actual town. Like a town, right? Like an old school, like European style town in Texas. And literally the first thing we're going to have to do is find craftsmen, masons, plumbers, electricians. And those people are going to get in, like we're going to, if they're good, they're going to get the best deals of anyone. All the rich people are going to have to buy their way in, and they're going to have to pay a lot.
I swear to God, I'm gonna work on my plumbing skills over the next year, so I could sign up. But Tucker, once again, as always, so fascinating to have you on the show. You've been the guest that's been on the show the most, and I was really not only fascinated by your article on Doomer Optimism, and everyone can check it out at tuckermax.com, but I heard about the article when I saw two people arguing about it on Facebook. And one person was saying, you should kick this guy out of your group. And it reminded me, like, I was literally kicked out of a bunch of Facebook groups after a certain article of mine. And
the New York one, right?
The New York one. And like, people just don't want to hear it. And like, they kick him out of the group. And even though I was like, no, this is how you get your group better, is to consider these issues, that a certain element didn't want that. But, and like you say, you're not like prepping for an atomic war. You're like doing things you would normally should do, like keeping good care of yourself, understanding plumbing, having electricity, getting food for your family, and so on. So, but always it's fascinating to talk to you. And look, Rob and I have to visit Texas before the next kid's born, because I'm sure you're going to be very busy then. So we're not that far away.
We're finishing a guest house soon. You know, you and the wife are always welcome.
And vice versa. We have a guest house, but yeah, I know you're nesting now because Veronica's preparing for number 4. So, well, good luck, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Definitely. Thank you, man.